All right, so we are taking a look at the Rat and the Machine, and I am joined by Lincoln. Hello. So this was a solo project. Am I understanding that correctly?
Sorry?
This was a solo jam project. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah. Everything was me except sound effects, free stuff online.
Yeah, yeah. And yeah, so can you talk a little bit about your background in game development?
I'm sorry, my audio is really low.
Oh,
You say that
yeah,
one more
that's
time?
fine. Yeah, just make sure. I guess the stream itself is muted, so you're only hearing me through Discord. But I was just asking if you could talk a little bit about your background in game development.
Oh, background. Yeah, sorry about that. Been doing it about 4 years. I've never released anything commercially, just indie small time stuff, like what you're playing now. Um, but yeah, started when I was 14 about.
And then have you participated in a lot of game jams since then?
I've done GMTK and 2023,
Mhm.
2024, and that's it.
All right. So in terms of the games that you've put out, is it I see 3 games on your itch.io page. Did you do like 2D pixel art like just as a hobby aside from that, or is your experience entirely based on like working on these jam projects?
Only on projects. I had to learn pixel art just to do these. So everything I know is just for the game,
Mhm.
programming everything.
Wow. Okay.
No really prior experience.
Uh, this is very tricky. I saw that the expectation is for this game to last like between 10 and 20 minutes. Have you seen people take longer than that, or
I have. I had some of my family play it,
yeah?
and some of them aren't very good, so it took them maybe a half hour. It
Okay.
kind of depends. It You could do it pretty quick, but I do not get it. It gets a bit tricky later on.
Yeah, that's later on. I'm already struggling on the opening few screens here. Oh my gosh, and now I have to do it under duress while this machine menaces me. Okay. Well, we'll see
Yeah.
how far we get. But yeah, just while I play the game here, then, do you want to talk a little bit about the actual development process? Like, how um, did you start with just like building the art for the project, or did you have a platforming engine already that you were able to reuse? How did that go?
Um, I started with uh probably the idea first. I thought in my head I thought of a concept like I thought of a rat running,
Hmm.
and then I thought of like some kind of figure in the distance, and I thought of like its eyes kind of glowing red like laser eyes, and then I kind of built it around that. The idea like this figure in the distance. So I had some movement code already from my previous project, so I kind of moved that over, tweaked some of the numbers a bit,
Hmm.
and art. I did started doing the art pretty quickly, and you could kind of tell it's pretty what's the word, stylized, I
Hmm.
guess. But that was mainly from like time constraints, like make it all because it's all like one color
Yeah.
silhouettes, makes it easier for me because I'm not the best at art, and I think it turned out fairly well.
It does give a very like the silhouetted look in particular is really nice. Ah, okay, I think that the main thing that is difficult is just knowing like where exactly these fireballs are going to land. Oh, you start so far back every time.
Yeah, he has I've people kind of struggle with the fireballs from what I noticed. I think I need to tweak some of that stuff. But he kind of does a red light, green light thing. Like when he shoots two, easiest way to dodge is standing still,
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Oh,
But yeah, I, if I had more time, probably would have conveyed that better.
I think that the issue is a matter of just anticipation. Like if you get used to the pattern, like the way that it works, then you know, okay, now I gotta stand still, now I gotta move. Um, oh, okay, oh my gosh. Um, Whereas if there was, oh, No, please don't tell me I have to restart that whole thing. Okay, no, good. I got a checkpoint here. I guess if one of two things, like either the motion that he does in the background could sort of like preemptively tie in with a marker in the foreground of where the fireball is going to land, so you know not to be there. Or the fireball could move a little more slowly when it actually appears on screen, giving you time to react to it. Because I'd say that right now, the speed that it falls on the screen is not always enough to notice it react and turn around or like try to move forward.
Yeah, I've been thinking about that. I want to kind of limit any like UI thing, so I don't want like a kind of a red marker at the top. I feel like that might, as you could tell, focusing a lot on atmosphere,
Yeah.
but I do think just slowing it down straight up will probably fix that. So I do think I do have to give him some nerfs to the attacks because it does make things a bit too hard. So sorry if that becomes a bit of an issue.
It's okay. I think that it's not even a matter of like it doesn't have to be UI like an arrow pointing like it's going to come here, but you could use some kind of lighting effect, like a sort of extreme spotlight of where the fire is going to appear from. Something that still fits with the vibe, but is presented like in a more diegetic way.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I see what you mean. That could probably work pretty well, I think.
I mean, it really depends on ultimately like what kind of challenge you want there to be for the game. Okay, so now we're gonna get like this headlong rush, so we gotta move out of the way. Okay. Oh gosh. And I guess it really depends on what kind of style of experience you want to create. Like in terms of like, there's a very very strong vibe from the hostility of this machine. But there's really just this question of, do you want players to be able to anticipate things as they're going to happen, or do you sort of expect people to die once and then be able to clear things on their like sort of second attempt after that?
Yeah, that's something I'm gonna have to think about because currently it kind of acts a bit more as a memory game than one of pulling things off, and I do think the memory issue kind of gets worse as you go on. Like you gotta memorize more. But I think I could probably might try to keep it as a blend of both, like make it a bit more forgiving in anticipation, but still leave kind of enough difficulty to where it's like what's the word? He still seems like scary, you know? So I'm gonna have to work on that.
Yeah, I guess a lot of that really comes from the fact that like some of the attacks are really sudden, and it's fine if the attacks are sudden as long as there's a telegraph that you can anticipate like what's about to happen. Like if you see him fly through the screen in the distance like high up, then you know he's gonna fly in the screen high up. If you see him attack like sort of lurch down the front of the screen like this, then he's gonna fire the lasers or something. And if you want to make it so that players can anticipate that, then you can kind of artificially create a scenario where the first time they encounter it, they are probably safe as long as they move instinctually. On the other hand, you could just make it so that the first time they encounter an attack like that, they're probably going to be killed by it, but compensate for that by putting a checkpoint on the screen immediately prior. So like, yeah, the first time you see it, you don't have a chance to react necessarily, you're most likely to die, but you lose next to no progress.
Yeah, I've tried to do that in some parts, but not super crazy as you could see. Mainly with the fireball thing, because I know like that was a bit of a long stretch. The stream's a bit delayed on my screen,
Yeah.
so I'm not too fully accurate on that. But I do know that that's a bit of a stretch. But it's just like I try to like hammer in the idea of how you dodge it. So that's why I kind of made it like long checkpoints and such. Like I kind of made it like just keep failing here until you get it, then hopefully they get it. But yeah.
Oh my gosh, the laser eyes that he's doing here, I guess. It looks like.
Oh yeah, these are a bit tricky.
Are they
if you don't, if
moving
you ever
to...
like want me to elaborate, I'm trying not to, just because it's like, but if you ever need me to, just say.
If I had to guess, I'd say that the lasers are moving to a position to anticipate where I'm going to be.
Yeah.
So you want to like, sort of wait for them to like lock in and then move at the last second to throw them off.
Pretty much, yeah.
Oh, and imagine if there was rat corpses piling up every time you died. That would be very morbid.
Oh, actually, I think that's kind of interesting. I don't like that idea. Oh, that comment in chat about flying diagonally seems interesting. Dang, fireballs. I have to try that.
Yeah, I've got some good suggestions coming from Alice here. So, yeah, can you talk a little bit about the most difficult problem that you encountered during the jam, and what was your solution to that?
Oh, definitely movement. Getting that to work right and stuff. I'm not sure how you've been dealing with it now, but it's mostly smoothish now. Like, not much acceleration, deceleration, and such. While I was developing, you actually had a move. It was like a kind of sprint.
Yeah.
And so some attacks you had to be sprinting to dodge, like the lasers. They used to be a lot quicker,
okay.
so you had to be sprinting to get through.
Yeah.
And you could only double jump while sprinting. I'm not sure why it did that, but it made it very tricky to move. And I was kind of stubborn with it, like I wasn't really changing it when I should have been. So I was kind of fiddling with that for a while. And eventually I just scrapped the whole thing. Just you could double jump always, you can never sprint. But that was probably the biggest hurdle.
So how late did you finalize the character controller in the overall development of the process?
Third day, I'm gonna say. So I did have to change some stuff, but most of it worked out pretty similar. And that might be the reason why some attacks are a bit hard, because of that carryover.
I see. Okay, so you had already designed the level at least partially, and then you made changes to it once you removed the sprint feature.
Yeah. So I kind of just had to compensate retroactively, and yeah. Okay. So if you just to give advice on the laser thing, because for me you're still on it.
Yeah.
Don't switch rooms during it. Just kind of wait for him to go away.
Yeah.
There's weird stuff like that in the game where it's like you kind of need to be told it to kind of, it's the lack of knowledge that usually is the issue. So I'm not sure how I could actually go about explaining that. I might add an option for tips, to be perfectly honest. But that feels a bit lazy.
Well, I would say if it's a matter of, try not to move to a certain, like try not to transition the screen while being, while an attack is happening. I think that in that case, you probably just want to make it so that if the player initiates a screen transition, that it cancels the attack, exactly.
Yeah, okay. That could probably work. I've been toying with the idea of just having like timed, like a wall that you can't pass until he leaves, or whatever. But I'm gonna have to think about how I make that diegetic. But I think just canceling it should work pretty well, like some brief invincibility on a new room or something.
I would say you could even just make it so that the animation can still continue, but the actual damage hitbox is removed. That way,
yeah.
It just it's a subtle cheat so that the player, like they just think like, oh, I got a lucky dodge there or something. Oh.
Yeah, I don't have enough player cheats in this. It's pretty unforgiving. But I kind of left in difficult stuff like that. on partially on purpose, because I did kind of want to sell the narrative of like you're powerless against this guy.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I wanted to focus on most. So, in retrospect, I do think I should have changed that stuff, but I think it kind of partly helps serve the narrative.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not a very good reason for doing that, I think.
I think that like it really comes down to the source of the difficulty in the game. Like if you want to create this, like I believe it's possible to create something that is really challenging without having it feel like a total like, how would you say, like a really just like a memorization challenge, because so much of the fight, I don't know, like I'm assuming that you can get through this fight no problem because you know exactly where to stand, where to run, when to stop.
Yeah. That's the thing. I think. Yeah, that's the issue. I do think just having it be like just keep throwing yourself at that wall till you get through works in some games. Like, a lot of this game was inspired by Celeste, and you know that's a lot of that game you just die over and over. So that kind of carries over here, but I do think I might just add more anticipation frames for most of his attacks. Stuff like that.
Oh my goodness. I finally made it to the laser eyes, but it's quite tricky. I assume this is near the end of the game, though.
Yeah, this is kind of like the final boss fight, more or less.
And then laser... okay. I find jumping works well with the laser because it doesn't always, like, it tracks your horizontal position, but not necessarily your vertical position.
Yeah, that's usually how I do it, but a lot of that stuff, it's just, it's hard to figure out the kind of, like, strategies to it.
Yeah, there's another comment here from Alice about if the lightning strikes are random or not, and if they're not random, or rather, if they are random, then you can repurpose them as telegraphs.
Huh. Like, for an attack. That's interesting. They are random, though. Yeah, they just randomly spawn. I do think... I've been toying with the idea of just lightning itself being an attack in, like, a certain level, but I do think that's probably not the best. But, yeah, maybe like a lightning strikes before he dashes or something. I do think I'm just going to rely more on audio cues for telegraphs. Like, for his dash, maybe kind of like a sound that gets louder, and then it stops right before it comes by. So it's like
have like one of those sort of like jet flyby sounds, like the, and then have it. You can even take advantage of directional audio and have it so that you can really hear him coming from left to right or right to left. You could even make it so that when he flies low on the screen, he's always coming from the right, and when he flies high on the screen, he's coming from the left. And that way, depending on which side. Oh, okay. Well, yes. Then depending on which earphone you hear him in, then you can have this use that as a like reliable cue to know if he's coming from up high or down low.
Yeah, there is a cue currently, which it's in the background.
Yeah.
He flies right in the background. Yeah, but it's not very noticeable at all.
No, I would say that I see it. It's just a matter of
You really recognize it, I guess. Or no?
What I would say is like I see it, but on the other hand, because I usually don't succeed the very first time that I play, then after because the sequence is scripted, it means that I don't need to pay attention to the audio cue as much as I just need to memorize the sequence of events. Whereas if his attacks were randomly selected, then I would need to pay more attention to the actual cues to anticipate. Okay. Okay, I can get to the laser eyes, but I can't get past.
I'm gonna be
So,
honest. This is phase one of three phases. So if you want to stop after the first phase, it only gets harder from here.
do you at least get checkpoints between the phases?
You do, yeah. I made
Okay.
sure of that.
Okay.
But they get pretty difficult.
I mean, I'm gonna keep
I
trying.
Okay, yeah. That's my main issue with it currently. I gotta balance the difficulty.
Okay. Well, I want to make sure I drop the link to the game in chat in case people want to try it out. Because my goodness, it's difficult. But people are also not doing an interview while they're playing the game. So, um,
Yeah.
yeah. If anyone has any questions or comments they'd like to add in chat, I think now would be the time to do that. But otherwise, do you have any social media channels that you'd like to plug?
I have a Discord for the game. I'm gonna continue development on it, but I guess H.io. I put stuff up there. I have a few dev logs on the game,
Yeah,
but no,
make
that's
sure
really
to
it. I don't have
include.
much social media presence besides that.
That's fine. I've dropped both of those links in chat. And then, do you want to talk a little bit about what some of those like post jam versions are going to entail?
Oh yeah. So currently I'm thinking first make this level a bit longer and a bit easier, and then I'm gonna kind of do a 3-act thing. I think so. Like you'll have the rat in the machine. Then you'll have one with like maybe you're a bird. Currently, I'm working on a bird one, and then it's like a different machine, one that's more like an animal than like a murderer or whatever. And then the third act, and maybe you're like a hedgehog or something. And I'm just gonna end it at that, like 3 different levels, 3 different characters and campaigns, but pretty short overall.
So it's going to continue the idea of like small mammal versus large killing machine.
Yeah, basically.
Is there a sort of like intention behind the like I guess a sorry? Yeah, exactly. Like where is that coming from?
Well, it's mainly just spawned from like the game jam theme, right? I was thinking, oh, what's small, what's big? And I don't know if you've seen the show The Boys on Amazon. I just saw that, and the villain of that's like evil Superman. So I thought, oh yeah, a rat versus an evil Superman.
Okay.
And then it kind of changed from evil Superman to like a killer robot. But he still kind of has the Superman laser eyes and stuff. But I don't know, the theme, it's not really a message. It's just kind of, oh, I want the player to feel kind of powerless against this guy. And that's mostly what I base this stuff around. And I think that's what I kind of want the other campaigns to continue. Like the other rats, the other animals still can't attack, kind of thing.
Right. Like I'm lost as to what to do to dodge this laser attack. Like I assume it comes down to timing. Like you have to get above the laser beam.
Oh, you kind of have to go to the sides because since it's at an angle, it's like it's vertically less high on the side, so you just jump
Okay.
on them.
Whoa. Oh, I can just
Yeah, still stuff like that.
Whoa.
Just,
What happened? Did I trigger the next phase
yeah,
of
that's
the
one of
fight?
the bugs. I was hoping you wouldn't run into that. You just skipped a phase, like accidentally. Basically, when the screen shakes, if it shakes enough, it kind of goes too far into the other screen and kind of tricks the game into thinking you're there. I didn't realize that until I already published it, and I've still yet to fix that. So, well, you're on phase 3 now.
Oh my gosh. Well, I still don't know if I'm going to be able to finish this, but yeah, do you want to talk a little bit about the mechanics that you're thinking of? Like, are those different characters? Like a bird, I can imagine controlling significantly different from a rat. So, how do you see that how do you see that working?
So I've already implemented the bird, but I'm thinking they'll have like the bird moves slightly slower than the rat, jumps a bit higher, and instead of a double jump, he has a glide.
Okay.
So you hold space and you fall slower and move a bit quicker while gliding. So I'll have obstacles about that, maybe like a fan that you could rise up on if you glide, stuff like that. So they'll each kind of have their own, like they will move the same, but they have their own like unique ability when you press space. Like rat, double jump, bird glides. Still working on the hedgehog, thinking you might do like some kind of ball roll or ball dash or something.
Go and then laser eyes. Uh, I just gotta do jumps for the lasers. That seems to be the most consistent way to avoid those.
Yeah, they're a bit tricky.
And then you talked about the possibility of like maybe tuning the difficulty of the game a little bit. Maybe using some of those telegraphs would help with that, but in general, I mean, are you mostly happy with the level of difficulty that you've achieved with the game?
I feel like it's a bit too hard. Like, the main complaint from people that I've played it has been difficulty.
Yeah.
And it's not always necessarily, like, mechanically difficult, but just, like, a knowledge-based thing, which I feel like is kind of a problem. Like, I need to kind of shift it from, like, knowing how to dodge it to, like, knowing when to dodge it, you know?
Yeah.
But overall, I do say I like that it's a bit difficult. I think it kind of serves the game a bit better. But I do think it's too overtuned. I mean, how do you feel while playing it? Like, I'm getting the sense, mainly just the attacks popping out of nowhere.
Yeah,
it's a bit of an issue.
I guess like my personal philosophy is to try to get players to repeat content as little as possible. So when you have a boss like this, given the fact that your character dies in one hit, it means that you're going to have to sort of clear a lot of the game by playing flawlessly. And again, like, thankfully there are checkpoints. Oh my gosh. But you end up having to, like, redo a lot of the sections that you've, like, already, like, I've already done the first part of the sequence quite a few times, and then I get to the part, like, oh, you know, here's where I always die, and you end up with a bit of a problem of, like, oh, I don't get to practice the purse that I die on. I just sort of, like, always get that far and then die. Like, you can imagine I'm not a fan of Cuphead or games like that.
Oh, yeah.
But tons of people are, so, you know, I would definitely find a way to strike a bit more of a balance in terms of making the game a little more generous in the difficulty, but...
Yeah. So I do think more checkpoints is probably a good way to go. I could always just, like, for this specifically, just make the phases shorter and have, like, 5 instead or something.
Yeah, that's a good example.
Make that a bit easy. But I do remember, like, some parts, like the fireball section early on, gotta go, like, 3 screens without a transition. I could just slap one in halfway through.
Mm-hmm.
So stuff like that, yeah, more checkpoints would probably be good. But then again, this is, like, a lot of this playtime is just, yeah, straight up dying, like you said. Like, it's 5 minutes, you could take the cross the whole level if you don't die. But with all the deaths, it might be like 20 or 25. I don't know. But I don't think that's something, I think that's kind of, honestly, kind of a bit core to the game, just the way it is. One-hit kills and stuff. But I do think, like, just dying a bunch is kind of gonna be part of it. Although, I will try to make that less bad.
I guess there's kind of an interesting balance in terms of, like, I fully believe in games that can have, like, a one-hit kill death. Like, I just recently designed a platforming game where that is the case. But on the other hand, I experimented with having a boss battle in the game and decided to take it out, because I just find that when it comes to a boss fight, you know, think of most of the games you have boss battles with usually have, like, multiple... your character can take multiple hits.
Yeah. So, I see what you mean. I think just, yeah, I could just make his attacks easier, but honestly, when I was making this, I kept prioritizing the aesthetic over gameplay, basically. So I was, in my head, I feel like I had to strike a balance between him being hard and him being scary. And I feel like for him to be scary, he has to be hard. And if he's easy, then it's kind of just, oh, it's just dope trying to kill me, but he can't, you know?
Yeah.
So I feel like I kind of have to lean into that a bit. And I feel like for the boss fight, I get that it probably doesn't work super well given the platformer setting. But I don't know, I feel like he needs kind of a final send-off before you win.
Yeah, I do agree with that. Like, definitely, it's maybe it's a really tough balance to strike, certainly.
Yeah.
So I really hesitate to say what should be changed. Like, I think that the idea that you had of taking the battle, and like the battle lasts the same amount of time, it just is split into more phases. I think that's a really good example of not making
Okay.
any individual part. Like, you're not compromising on the overall vision, you're just you're reducing the amount that the player has to repeat. And that I may as well say, because I'm specifically because I have no intention of implementing it, but one of the ideas that I had for my platforming game was to have a boss encounter where you are sort of like going along a path, and like as your player character is like running through the environment, you're facing off against some sort of like wizard guy who is like casting fireballs into the environment and making things difficult for you. But that way, the player would fundamentally remember what is happening and where those fireballs are going to appear. And then they could still reach physical checkpoints as they continue. Like, once they sort of make it to the boss, then they teleport off to a different screen, and that is your checkpoint. That's where you like start on the next screen. So
I see.
you still have what feels like an antagonistic force that you are catching up with and fighting back against, but you're not you have these excuses for built-in checkpoints within the fight. So yeah, if you do end up making some changes to the game, I'd love to take another look. I think at this point I kind of have to call it, because I'm getting kind of close to the end of the stream here. But
Oh yeah,
yeah,
no
Lincoln,
worries.
thank you so much for coming on the stream and talking about the game. Best of luck with the continued development. And
Thanks.
yeah, as I said, feel free to bring it back if you have a post-gen version you'd like me to take a look at.
Cool. I'll see about that, but thanks a ton for playing. Yeah, thanks for your feedback. I'm gonna have to do some work here, I think, and it's good to see someone actually play it in front of me, because now I can see the specifics of what, people struggle with.
Absolutely, that's
So we'll definitely have to do some work on that. Thanks a bunch for having me.
for sure. I think that like that is a recommendation I would make in general. Is like, as much as possible, try to find people who are willing to play test the game with a screen share
Yeah.
going, and ask if you're allowed to record it ahead of time so that you can like go back and review the footage and see like specifically where they're having trouble. And I'd say like you start to see the commonalities surprisingly quickly. Like, I think even within about 5 playtests, assuming people have various level of skill, you're gonna find those like problem moments that people are really getting stuck on, and that's not always an issue. That doesn't mean you need to change something necessarily. It depends on what you're going for. Like, if you know that is part of the intention of the game, is like, yes, this is meant to be difficult, this is meant to be a high tension moment, and everyone gets stuck on it, that's okay. But if it's like, oh, this just this silly jump that most people get stuck on and it's not really supposed to be hard, then that's something you seek to change.
Yeah.
So but yeah, thanks a lot for coming on, and as I said, looking forward to seeing where this goes.
Cool. Thank you. All right.
All right.
Well, bye.
Yeah, bye for now. All right, and that is where we're going to wrap things up for now.